Greetings, I'm Demonac, and it's Hearthstone time. Alright, with the new expansion out and all that great new cards, let's go take a look at what they've actually added. Switch over to crafting so we can see the cards I don't have, which is essentially all of them. And use the new thingy, because they've modified their deck stuff somewhat. So pick Grand Tournament here, so only those cards. And voila. So just starting where we are with Druid, we have Living Roots is a new cheap removal spell, and I mean it's 2 damage for 1 mana. That's pretty common, but you have your choice of that or 2/1/1s, which means it's really flexible. Like you can blow up a cheap minion early in the game, but later in the game maybe you have combos. I mean you get more minions for Roar or other forms of powering up. That's pretty darn good. So it's very interesting and flexible. I don't know how much you want to put that in every deck. The Darnaz's Aspirant is like weird. I mean, there are so many more 2/3 and 3/2 minions for 2 now that have good abilities. That yeah, there's just a lot of excellent stuff. It is upping the power curve because you're not going to see a lot of Crocs anymore. If you ever, not that you did, but I mean. They're just much, much better Crocs now. So, the Darnaz's Aspirant, she's a 2/3 for 2, and she gives you an empty mana crystal. So if she doesn't die right away, you're going to get some extra mana. But her death rattle is that you lose that mana crystal. So if you just put her out second turn and your opponent lightning bolts her, then you lose that extra mana crystal and makes no difference. But if she does somehow survive, she is going to get you a hit on mana. And as a 2/3 for 2, it's going to happen sometimes. So that's kind of cool. And plus, because the losing a mana crystal is a death rattle, technically you could silence her and then get to keep your mana crystal. Now then you've spent more effort on that, but I don't know. Pretty good. The Druid of the Saber here is a 2/1 for 2. But when you choose her, she either gets charge or +1/+1 itself. So you can get a 3/2 stealth for 2, which is actually pretty novel already. Or she can just be like a Bluegill Murloc, which is often what you need. Just like the 2 damage charge to kill something, So she's sort of interesting. I don't know if there's a specific role that you need her for. Like the 3/2 stealth could definitely help you to kill off a larger minion that your opponent... Like, your opponent's going to have 3 mana and go to play a minion, and they're like, mine's a 4/3 or something, and your 3/2 stealth is just going to kill it. So you could pose your opponent a problem. Again, that choice is a very strong mechanic that they have. Mulch is weird. What you have here is 3 mana, destroy any minion. Cool. But you're adding a random minion to your opponent's hand. So it is a random minion. So the chances that you're giving them a minion that is as good, that is really useful, are low, one would think. You could give them something crazy, but I mean, in constructed play, is it really going to be that much better than whatever else they had? And the thing is, you are destroying the minion that's in play. So late game, you're going to blow up something big or threatening for 3 mana. And on their turn, yeah, they're going to have the mana to play it again. But there's a good chance they'll get something... like, if you were blowing up something big and impressive, there's a good chance they got something smaller, not as impressive. And that's pretty good. And if you go the other way, if early in mid-game you blow something up, they might get something really expensive that'll probably hurt you later, but it's very expensive, so you've gotten rid of the problem for several turns. Pretty interesting. This is a messed up weird card. Astral Communion. You pay 4 mana for this spell. So that's, say you do this turn 4. It's taking your entire turn. You gain 10 mana crystals. So it's just like, you now have maximum mana. It's like overkill, but I don't think you get anything for the overkill. So you have maximum mana, but it discards your hand. So you're sitting there with maximum mana and no cards. If you did this on turn 4, you are kind of putting yourself behind just for spending the mana and not getting anything right away. If you draw something big next turn, or if you draw something that draws cards next turn, you could crush your opponent because you have 10 mana and they have like 4 or 5. But like the earlier you play this, the more cards you are probably losing. The later you play it, the less kind of awesome it is. Like, yeah, if you play it on turn 6, you're still gaining a lot of mana. You discard any cards you had left. I don't know. But it is so weird seeing how this works out. I mean, you could theoretically you could try and have a bunch of weenies. If you innervate this out, you're going to discard even more cards, but maybe it doesn't hurt as much if you just get turn 2 or turn 1 max mana. And then every card you draw from then on you can play. If you play more expensive stuff in your deck and you use the jousting mechanic, it's very weird. I'm sure some pro will find something incredibly abusive to do with it, but discarding your hand is a pretty bad cost. So we have the Savage Combatant. This guy is just straightforward, very good, right? 5/4 for 4 is pretty good stats. And Inspire, give your hero +2 attack. So whenever you use your hero power, it's actually giving you 3 attack and 1 armor. So yeah, that's going to get pretty savage real fast. You're going to kill things. He's out there being a 5/4. No complaints there. The Wild Walker is interesting. It's interesting when they give druids more mechanics that are beast related, so that there is more reason to play beasts in your druid deck. Because originally it was mainly just hunters. But yeah, 4/4 for 4 is fine. And then if you have a beast and you give it +3 health, that's probably pretty beneficial. So she's solid for a common. And the Knight of the Wild. So he's a 6/6 for 7. Then whenever you summon a beast, you reduce his cost by 1. Now, I think this is like that giant there, where it doesn't matter if he's in your hand or in your deck. And if that's the case, just like no matter where he is, he gets cheaper whenever you play a beast. This guy could easily be a 2 mana or less, like even a free 6/6 when you draw him, which is pretty crazy if you play a bunch of if you had a bunch of cheap beasts. Flavor text. He gets a discount on a tournament entry. He has a discount on a tournament entry fee because he is his own horse. But he definitely gets that's a very interesting guy. And speaking of crazy and interesting, Aviana here. 5/5 for 9 mana legend. All your minions cost 1. 1. So if you have 10 mana, you can play Aviana, and then you can play a 9 or 10 cost legend for that other 1 mana that you had left. If you play her, you could play her at 9 mana, and then innervate and play 3 9 mana legends. This play is not going to come up very often, and if you try and build your deck for it, then your deck's going to be slow and die. But wow, is that ever some scary potential if you can get that going. Like craziness. So basically, I mean, you could have gotten that 9 or 10 cost minion anyway for the first one. You're just getting a 5/5 for 1 as a bonus. If it's just that first turn, but if she survives, and if you have other cheap things, you go crazy. Or if you have the card drawing, you Nourish, draw 3 cards, just game over if it wasn't already. The problem is that if it wasn't already thing, you have to be alive at that point of the game and still need this help. And have all those big cards, I don't know. Into Hunter, we have the Brave Archer. This is a 2/1 for 1 for most of the game, because her Inspire ability only works if your hand is empty. So, a lot of the time, she's just a 2/1 for 1. But if you draw her late in the game and you're able to empty your hand, you start shredding the enemy hero, because your hero power is already deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. She's doubling it effectively. She's dealing 2 damage, so you're going to pay 2 mana and do 4 damage to the enemy hero every turn? They're not going to last long. But you have to have your hand empty. The Bear Trap is pretty kickin'. I like the Bear Trap. It's 2 mana for a 3/3 bear with taunt, basically. Now, it only triggers when your hero is attacked, and it actually only triggers after your hero's attack. So this is not like get down. This is not going to noble sacrifice actually block the attack. Okay? They hit you with their 2/3 or whatever. You take 2 damage, and then you get a bear afterwards. So their guy survives, but you have a 3/3 bear with taunt. Pretty good. I was underestimating this card before, like, that's one thing I learned from their Tavern Brawl. The lock and load is going to result in some crazy combos. I don't know if it's the kind of thing that I would ever, like, probably isn't the kind of thing I would ever try and set up. But yeah, 2 mana, does nothing on its own, right? You play this to set yourself up, and then every time you cast a spell this turn, you add a random hunter card to your hand, which could be another spell. I think it could be a hunter minion. But if you get more spells, it's crazy. And the thing is, if you have cheap, like 1 or 0 cost spells, you could play this and draw a number of cards while getting to unload all of those things. So it's definitely got some power. But yeah, I don't know, it's a combo. Again, this is one of those ones you're gonna see like some like pro players will do crazy things. The King's Elec is pretty straightforward. He's a 3/2 for 2, and half the time, assuming that your deck isn't super engineered to have high cost minions for jousting, or that your opponent's deck is equally engineered for that, because some people are going to try it. So yeah, half the time he's going to draw you a minion, probably an expensive minion you're not casting anytime soon. But 3/2 for 2 and a card, pretty good. He's also, if you succeed and if you get to draw the minion, you are thinning your deck a little bit to help you get to the other cards faster, which definitely is counter to the emptying your hand mechanic the Hunter's got, but that's okay. I'm not a big fan of the emptying your hand mechanic anyway. Power Shot I like. Now, this is not as strong on the Hunter as it would be on most other classes, because the Hunter actually has a huge variety of tools for killing things. But you're like, multi-shot is expensive, and it just doesn't always do what I want. For 1 mana less than multi-shot, you hit 3 minions for 2 damage. Now, you got to target the one in the middle, right? It deals 2 damage to a minion and to the minions next to it. But, I don't know. I like Power Shot. I think it's cool. I don't play Hunter much, but I could see using that. So they have one of their legends here. Because Hunter actually got 2 legends because they're a legend combo and they're weird. It's a 4/2 for 3. So I like cheap legends. That's one thing. He is cheap. He's inexpensive. 4/2 are not the stats I want for 3, but he's got a good ability, so I'm going to say he's okay. Would I craft him? I don't like crafting the class legends too much, but he's interesting, because 4/2 for 3, and at the end of your turn, he deals 1 damage to all other minions. That includes your own, but not himself. He's pretty interesting, just for, like, thinning the herd. You have the Stablemat. Okay, she is pretty cool. 4/2 for 3, same cost. But she just has Battlecry, give a friendly beast immune this turn. Which, I mean, it's more time sensitive. It's not as, you can't use it preemptively like the bubble, but it is basically like bubble a friendly beast. So you wait, you play her at the right time, it's going to let you do a trade, but not lose your guy. In fact, not take any damage on your guys. So Hunter's probably going to be playing a lot of beasts to benefit from a bunch of this other stuff, and if you're doing that, she's pretty solid. Just like let you trade, but instead of trading, you win. That's good, and you get a 4/2 out of the bargain. The Ram Wrangler is super random, which means he is occasionally going to annihilate your opponent, and he's often going to do nothing. And I hate stupid random crap like that. But you get a 3/3 for 5, not good stats. But as long as you have any beast, and remember, he's not a beast, so he's kind of like helping and not helping your like beast-based strategies, but mostly helping, because as long as you have a beast when you play him, use time, he summons a random beast, which means he could summon like a gargantuan monstrosity of a beast, or he could summon a charged beast, or he could summon a piece of junk. But you're getting a 3/3 and a random beast for 5. As long as you're getting the battle cry, he's, I'm sure, always going to be worth it. it's very hard for them not to be worth it. You get like a 1/1 charge boar, like one of the crappiest, tiniest beasts there is. You still got a 3/3 and a 1/1 charge for 5. You did not get ripped off very much. It was almost worth the cost. Except it was random, and it could have been super worth the cost. So, yeah. Good. And then we have the Ball of Spiders. Maybe this card's amazing. I'm not a big fan of it. You spend 6 mana for 3 1/1s. Now, these are web spinners. This is not a 1/1. Oops. It's not even from there. It's Nox Ramus? Yeah, okay. I thought I could do that faster, or I wouldn't have bothered. But yeah, the web spinner, it's 3 1/1 web spinner. So you're getting 3 1/1s in play, and then when they die, like they are all beasts, at least, yay for combos. When they die, they're each giving you a random beast in your hand. So, I mean, you could get some crazy beast synergy out of it if you have the old, draw a card whenever a beast comes into play, now too expensive thing, or, your hyenas or whatever. Yeah, you got a whole bunch of beasts for that. I don't know. It's just, I'm sure it works for those things. It's not really a very exciting card to me. It's like a slow time delay, draw 3 cards that are also random. Then we have Acid Maw. He costs 7, and he's also a 4/2. So whereas the other guy, you're like, 4/2 for 3, that's not bad if his ability's good, right? 4/2 for 7, that's horrible. But it's because his ability is whenever any other minion takes damage, it's destroyed. So, you play him, and then you play something that does 2 damage to a minion, that minion dies. You play him and you power shot, probably all your opponent's minions die. And of course, if you partner him up with Dreadscale, then Dreadscale will do 1 damage to Acid Maw, but everything else will die. 10 mana, 2 card, legendary, Wrath of God. Yeah, it's built to be a combo. It's interesting in that way. It's not really going to ever come up in that way. That's not really what it's for. But they're both interesting legends anyway. So then we have Mage stuff. Arcane Blast, it may be a good card. It's certainly not an exciting card, right? It's 2 damage for 1 mana, but only to a minion. But the advantage is that if you have any spell damage, that spell damage is doubled for this spell only. So if you have 1 point of spell damage, then this is 4 damage for 1 mana to a minion. So this will magnify your spell damage for blowing up minions, but I don't know, is it super exciting? I'm not sure. They didn't add like a ton of spell damage in this expansion either, so I don't know. The Fallen Hero is pretty kick-ass though. Your 3/2 for 2 adds an extra damage to the Mage Hero ability. Oh man. So on turn 4, if you play this guy, then you can pay 2 mana, your other 2 mana, and shoot something for 2. And like if he sticks around for any period of time, that double damage on the mage powers is very strong, and it combos with all the other inspire mechanics, things that let you use your ability more than once per turn, which there are a number of them in this expansion. It's going to be sick. If the Effigy Secret, this is kind of weird. You start comparing it to Duplicate, but it helps. It's just another way for them to mix it up. It just makes it harder to know what you're going to get when you do something to a mage who has a secret. Because this one is when a friendly minion dies, summon, like into play, a random minion with the same cost, right? So there's still that thing where you're trying to kill the minion that you think is going to hurt you least to trigger the secret in case they're duplicating it. But maybe what they get out of the effigy is not what you expected from the duplicate. Also, duplicate has the drawback that, yeah, they might get 2 super good things, but they still have to have the mana to cast them on a future turn. This is going to put one into play right away. It's random, so you don't know what you're going to get, but it does definitely have a bit different mechanic there. I don't know. Random minion, same casting cost as whatever died. So, you're still doing well if you can kill like a little 1/1 or a token or something like that just to waste their secret. It's got the same problem as a lot of the Paladin secrets. Polymorph Boar is an alternate polymorph, right? Because the standard polymorph is polymorph into a sheep, which is just a 1/1. This costs 1 less. Transform a minion into a 4/2 boar with charge. So, if you already attacked with one of your minions, you could play this and bore it and hit them for another 4 damage. Of course, your minion is permanently changed, with maybe a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what minion it was. But, I mean, you could use this to trigger death rattles and stuff like that. But you can also use this to take an opponent's really large minion, turn it into a small minion, and then hopefully kill it. The thing is, unlike the polymorphed sheep, where you polymorphed it, you're done with it. You could shoot it or not, who cares? You can't kill this in one regular shot from the mage's ability. And if you leave it alive, a 4/2 can do some real damage. Now, the charge doesn't actually help your opponent, because the charge is only just, if you do it on your turn, it can attack right away. If you give it to your opponent, well, it would have been able to attack right away anyway, because they start their turn with it. But it's interesting. It definitely... It's a very flexible card. It is cheaper than the polymorph. I don't know. I'm sure it'll see a lot of play. I don't know if it's better or worse. It's just more interesting than polymorph. Not interesting to me is this guy. Okay, I love 3/4 for 4, so good stats there. I hate giving my opponent stuff, because it gives a random spell to each player. So it gives one to yourself and it gives one to your opponent. And I hate random stuff. That's 2 big strikes against him, so you're not going to see me playing this guy anytime soon. But he's a 3/4 for 3, and he gives both players spells. Maybe you can take more advantage of that than your opponent. I don't know. It gives you spells of any class, so it's pretty random. You don't want to give yourself, like, some piece of junk and give your opponent a sprint or something. The Dalaran Aspirant. Well, here's a way to get spell damage. He's 3/5 for 4, which is pretty good stats. And every time you use your hero ability, he gains +1 spell damage. It does stack. I saw an errata on that somewhere. Well, not errata, but a clarification on that somewhere. So he can build up some serious spell power and let you nuke things. But speaking of nuking things, Flame Lance. So this spell does not damage your opponent. It deals 8 damage to a minion. It's really just like a different Assassinate, pretty much. And, I mean, it's clearly not as good as Assassinate, because Assassinate will kill through bubbles and who knows, it'll kill something that has 30 hit points for whatever reason, stupid priests. This will just do 8 damage, but for all practical purposes, you pay 5 mana, a minion dies. The vast majority of the time, that will be the case. So I guess it lets you free up your fireballs for killing your opponent. I don't know. It's an interesting choice. They're just making sure the mages do have the market cornered on blowing things up. The Drake is, of course, one of the combos we saw in the Tavern Brawl, where you can use 6/6 for 6, which is solid. You can use your hero power any number of times per turn. So if you play him when you have 10 mana, you can play him and then just shoot twice right away. If you have the Fallen Hero, each of those shots is doing 2 damage, and suddenly it gets really crazy. If you have the Lady of the Lake and the Fallen Hero, Lady of the Lake makes your hero ability cost 1. So already you're getting 1 damage for every mana you spend. But if you have the Fallen Hero, you're getting 1 mana for every 2 damage, and you probably just won the game. And then their Legend Ronin, who's 7/7 for 8. It's like, okay. Death Rattle, add 3 copies of Arcane Missiles to your hand. 3 spells, very cheap. You're going to do a lot of... You're going to do 9 damage, even if it's random. That's like a half-cost Avenging Wrath that he's giving you when he dies. So the fact that it happens when he dies is like, eh. He still seems pretty decent, though. The Paladin stuff, we have Competitive Spirit, which is really interesting secret, right? So this is... It's just a timer-based secret. Nothing your opponent can do will trigger this. It's just when your turn starts, it goes off, and it gives all your minions in play +1/+1. So, if your opponent killed a bunch of your minions, you won't get much value out of this. But if for some reason they weren't able to, or if they didn't know what to expect, if they were worried about you having an Avenger or something, this could work out. And certainly this would combo well with the thing where when a minion dies, it comes back at 1 health. If you got that with the guy that has bubble. I don't know. Just, it's 1 mana to give all your minions +1/+1, and to give your opponent all that consternation about what secret it is. So they're going to play funny for a turn, and then all your minions are going to get +1/+1. It could be pretty good. I don't know if it's like, I don't know how great it is, but it's interesting. The Argent Lance, not that interesting to me. I mean, it's a 2-attack weapon with 2 uses for 2, and its only special power is that you have a joust, so call it a 50-50 chance. I know you can change it, but basically a 50-50 chance to have +1 durability. So it's 2-attack, 3 uses for 2, which is good, but really not exciting. And if you don't get that, it's kind of a crummy weapon. Half the time it's a crummy weapon, and half the time it's like, that's pretty good for the cost, I guess. This is good for the cost. Seal of the Champion. So this gives you a Blessing of Might and Blessing of Bubble in 1 card. And it's still only 3 mana. 3 mana is quite reasonable. Like, those things each cost 1. You're paying 1 extra to get them both in 1 card. And when you give the minion +3 attack and Divine Shield, a small minion can not just crush something, but crush something and live, which is double extra value, right? Because then your opponent has to kill it some other way, and if they don't, you're going to get to punish them later for having all that damage. Oh, it's just, I think Seal of Champions is going to be all over the place. It's like the expansion's Velen's Chosen. It's like, this is the new buff that is going to get used. Warhorse Trainer, he's pretty cool. 2/4 for 3 is okay, but when he immediately, like while he's in play, gives all your 1/1 tokens +1 attack, that's pretty awesome. Now, bear in mind, for the same cost, you can get a stupid orc who gives all your minions +1 attack, and he's only a 2/2, which is much worse than a 2/4. Much, much worse. But there's a big difference between giving all your minions except himself +1 attack, and this guy who's just those specific 1/1s. But yeah, paladins have the like muster. He doubles the value of your muster if any of those guys are alive when you want to play him on the next turn. So he's just kind of straightforward and decent. I don't know how much play he'll see, but it seems cool. The Murloc Knight is of course very Murloc-y. He's 3/4 for 4, which is not fabulous. It's actually really not good, but he gives you more Murlocs, right? And since Murlocs stack with Murlocs, they had to bump him up a little bit. Because remember, if you play him for 6 mana, right, you play him for 4 mana and then use your ability, which will give you a 1/1. But because of him, the Inspire, it'll give you a random Murloc, which could also be a bigger Murloc. It could be another Murloc Knight. That would be kind of sick. I'm sure he works out well for Murlocs. Tuskar Jouster is fine. He's a 5/5 for 5. You do a joust, and if you win, he heals your hero for 7. There's a 50-50 chance that he makes the Ancient Healbot look like a piece of junk. There's also a 50-50 chance that he does not Ancient Healbot you at all. Enter the Colosseum. See, this is what Brawl should be. This is Brawl without the random. Of course, it costs more mana than Brawl. But yeah, so 6 mana, destroy most minions. It's like each player keeps their highest attack minion, all the other minions die. Obviously, you can try and you can engineer this to your advantage somewhat. If you trade a bunch of minions to kill their big one, and then kill everything, and then you play this, they lose everything else. Hopefully, you have one big minion left, and you can win with that. It seems pretty good. Is it the ultimate power? I don't know. The 2 mana everything equality is probably still like even better than that. But equality does need another card to go with it. This just works. If you have no minions, this will still just blow up all but 1 minion. Unlike Brawl, it's not random. This is a freaky card. It's weird that he's not even a legendary. So you can play with 2 copies of him. Freaking weird. 6/6 for 6, fine. Battlecry. He goes through your deck and pulls out one of each different secret that is left in your deck. Just secretify. What? So it sounds amazing, right? I mean, he keep putting to play like 4 or 5 cards that are secrets. I mean, some of them are going to be really good, all just like for free when you play him. He pulls them out of your deck. You don't have to draw them. You have to remember, like, in order to take that kind of serious advantage, you have to be playing with a lot of different secrets. A couple of them aren't that good. Now, they're probably better when you have all of them at once. But it's also possible that later in the game, you will already have drawn, certainly you're going to probably have drawn some of your secrets, especially if you're playing with that many of them. So you're still usually going to get shafted where you don't get all of them. You're going to get, like, there are going to be a couple that are, like, in your hand, or you already played, and you're just not going to get them, or whatever ones you have in play. I'm assuming he's still bound by the uniqueness rule, where you can't have more than one copy of the same secret. So he's not as amazing as he sounds. He still seems pretty rough to me. He's still probably going to give you, if you design your deck for it, he should give you 2 or 3 of your secrets, even if you're only playing with pretty darn good secrets. So he's pretty interesting and cool. This guy is not as cool, but he is a death machine. He's an ironic death machine, because he's like a pacifist death machine. He 3/7 for 7, but he changes all enemy minions' attack to 1. Like, what? So that's a different kind of legendary, but that is a very, very strong power. And I think he's going to see some play. Is it really necessarily what you need for a 7-cost minion? I don't know, but it is a really powerful effect, and it's hard to say that it's not worth it. That is, like, awesome. Anyway, priest spells. We have Flash Heal. I'm not super impressed. There's 1 mana, restore 5 health. That's 5 health to you or a minion. So if you're restoring 5 health to a minion, that's probably actually really good. 5 health to yourself, not as impressive, but like, it is a 1 mana way to trigger all your healing effects, and there are even more healing things in the expansion. And oh, by the way, power word groovy. It actually says glory, but you're going to see groovy every time now. Yeah, it's you choose a minion. Whenever that minion attacks, restore 4 health to your hero. So this is kind of like the Blessing of Wisdom, right? Like the Paladin has with the card drawing. You could put this on an enemy minion, and it's not probably, unless the minion, like if the minion has more than 4 attack, you're not going to deter them from attacking. But it's still, that's going to really hamper that minion's ability to attack, and they're not going to like kill their own minion to get rid of it, probably. They'll just trade it for something, and you gain 4 health. But you could also put it on one of your own minions if you have a minion that seems fairly safe, and just milk it, just like gain that health. And of course, it's triggering some of the healing effects. Not healing minions, so it's not going to trigger all of them, but you can get healing combos. Confuse. This is a confusingly powerful card. I don't know what you would use it for or why exactly you would put it in your deck. But there's no question it's a strong effect. You swap the attack and health of all minions. Wow, that's going to do a lot. Is it gonna, like, you're going to alchemy all minions? Is it necessarily what you need or want? Or, like, I'm not sure what the purpose of putting this in your deck is. But I'm sure there is one, because any effect that powerful, it's got to do something, right? Convert is interesting. I mean, I guess it's 2 mana, it gives you a very flexible card. It's kind of like having a shapeshifter. You choose any enemy minion and put a copy of it in your hand. You still have to cast that thing, but this is a very flexible card. It's just, for 2 mana, you gotta remember, it's gonna be kind of worthless early in the game, or at least you're not getting great value out of it. If you spent 2 mana to get one of their cheap minions, that you still have to pay its casting cost. Like, this could have been another minion, but copying an enemy minion could definitely have some benefits. The flexibility is very interesting. I'm sure it's probably actually a good card. Wormrest Agent, he's a dink. He's a 1/4 for 2, which is meh. Although you're a priest, you can heal him. Not a bad target for Velens, right? You put Velens on him, he's hard to kill to get rid of that spell damage. He's gonna have 3 attack, which is enough to kill things, and he's gonna have still like 8 hit points, right? But his battle cry, if you have a dragon, he gets +1 attack and taunt. So if you have a dragon in your hand, he is a 2/4 taunt for 2 mana. Like, if you're actually playing him turn 2, that is pretty rough. And even later on, not too shabby. Especially being a priest where you can heal him. This thing, 3/3 for 3, and whenever you, like, if he doesn't die right away, whenever you draw a card, that card cost is reduced by 1. So he's like a slow motion Emperor Thorazan. This thing is cool, right? 3/3 for 3, solid stats. If he just fights and dies like a normal minion, okay, he wasn't a 3/4 for 3. They're very tough. But I'll take it for the fact that if he lives even 1 turn, he's going to save you a mana. And if he lives several turns, he could save you a lot of mana, and that's cool. And then, yeah, the Holy Champion. She's a death machine. She is savage. I should just craft them right now, even though she's common. And it's kind of dumb to craft common stuff. It's been all that dust. But, like, 3/5 for 4, good stats. Whenever any character is healed, gain +2 attack. Now she's like a... Light Warden is kind of crappy, because it's fragile. She is anything but fragile. You play her, 1 heal goes off, and she's already a 5/5 for 4, with no drawback, and only going to get bigger. So, you have to deal with her fast. She is just a battering ram. And then, if you want to, like, priest ways to kill your opponent, if your deck is very control-y and healy, like if your deck is just full of healing, like power word groovy, you're gonna, every time you look at it now, you're just gonna see groovy first before you read, but it's glory. Groovy. But anyway, so 5/4 for 4, I mean, he's already pretty solid stats, if a little aggressive, but this isn't Battle Cry, deal 4 damage to each hero. This is Inspire, deal 4 damage. So every time you use your hero ability to heal, you're dealing 4 damage to your opponent, and 4 damage to you. But say you heal yourself, you're doing 4 damage to your opponent and 2 If your deck is control-y, has a lot of healing, is just like slow, grindy, staying power sort of deck, this will help to greatly expedite killing your opponent. This guy is kind of... I don't know if he's so general purpose good, but even then, you do kind of control it. So, but he's kind of crazy, no matter how you look at it. We have Confessor Palatrus. I'm assuming it's Palatrus, could be Palatris, I don't really care. So she's only a 5/4 for 7. But every time you use your hero ability, she summons a random legendary minion into play. It's not your hand. She summons a random legendary minion. There are a lot of big legendaries. They added some smaller legends in this expansion. There are a lot of powerful legendary minions. If you're not paying the casting cost and you're getting a legendary, that is sick. Sick. So, yeah, she's obviously another serious threat to mankind. We're going to go through one more class, and I'm going to do the neutral ones and the other 3 classes in the next video. We have Rogue. We have more pirates, for one thing. How many more pirates? Not that many, actually. We have 1 new pirate. But there's starting to be enough, and there are a lot more effects that, like, care about pirates now, I guess. So, starting to be able to build a viable pirate deck, probably. I think there are some other pirates in the neutrals, I think. But, yeah, this guy is a 2/1 for 1, and when you equip a weapon, give it +2 attack. That's whether you use your hero power or you play a weapon from your hand. He's giving it +1 attack, and then when he inevitably dies, doesn't matter. He just gave it +1 attack. It's not getting +1 attack from him being out. So that's pretty cool. On the other hand, if you already have a weapon out and you play him, he doesn't do anything. It's only when you equip a new one. You gotta time him. But he's still a 2/1 for 1, so he gives you a first turn play that might also be useful later. The Cut Purse is a weird dude, man. He's only a 2/2 for 2. That is not great stats, right? There are a million, like, 1-cost minions that can trade with him. There are a few 1-cost minions that can kill him and survive now. There's several ways you can get a 2/3 for 1. But his ability, like, when he damages the enemy hero, so if he just trades with a minion, you get nothing. But if every time he hits the enemy hero, he gives you a copy of the coin. So just think about it. Turn 2, you play this guy. If your opponent doesn't kill him right away, turn 3, you hit them for 2, you get a coin. If you spend that coin right away, you could play a 4-mana minion. Now, if you were going second, you had the coin, you coin out the cut purse, then your opponent goes. Whatever they do, if they're playing a minion or something, like, they might not be killing him, right? Sorry, they played something. If they didn't play a 2-attack minion as their first turn, you coin this guy out. They're going to have to either spend a spell blowing him up or not. And if they don't kill him, he's going to give you your coin back, and you're just going to still be 1 mana ahead. But the fact that you can save them up is also very interesting. The other thing that's interesting, of course, is the coin counts as a spell, so you can use them to trigger combos, and that opens up a whole new world of hurt from, like, rogue stuff, potentially. If he lives long enough to hit your opponent. If not, oh well. The Undercity Valiant is another, again, there are tons of good 3-2 for 2s, 2-3 for 2s. He's 3-2 for 2, and combo deal 1 damage. Is he exciting? I don't know. But when you coin him out, if your opponent goes first and plays a 2-1, then you're like, coin, Valiant, blow up your 2-1. So, I mean, even later in the game, doing 1 damage pinpoint like that is not too bad, because he's not very expensive. You're still getting a 3-2 for 2. So he's kind of interesting. He's not one of the more exciting ones, but he's effective. Speaking of exciting, this is a messed up card. So, 3 mana, called Beneath the Grounds, right? It creates 3 ambushes. These are cards that are shuffled into your opponent's deck. Whenever they draw an ambush, now, I should be clear, when they draw an ambush, it triggers the ambush, and then part of the ambush says, and then draw a card. So, they're not losing a draw, okay? They hit your landmine, but they don't actually lose the card they would have gotten. They'll still get that card. But you shuffle these 3 ambushes into your opponent's deck, and every time they draw one, it summons a 4/4 Nerubian for you. Keep in mind, if they're drawing this on their turn, that Nerubian's coming into play on their turn, which means on your turn, it will already be able to attack. These are 4/4s that you're not paying the mana for. It was a 3-mana spell. Now, you don't know when they're going to come out, but the fact that there are 3 of them means you are probably going to get some good firepower out of this. Like, it is pretty crazy. Very weird. It's like unreliable, but so potentially strong. Hard to argue with that way. Burgle. 3 mana. It just adds 2 random class cards to your hand from your opponent's class. So, it's like this is like a Thought Steal, sort of, except it doesn't care what's in your opponent's deck. It just takes random junk from their class. I don't know. Thought Steal seems better. Because Thought Steal, at least the cards have been curated by your opponent. Whatever skill level your opponent is at, they're probably choosing some better cards than just any random thing. But any random thing might help you more than the card specifically for their deck. I don't know. It's still 3 mana for 2 cards, so I guess they got that going for it. Shady Dealer is a 4/3 for 3, so he's pretty good. And if you have any pirate in play, then you get a 5/4 for 3, because he has +1/+1. It looks like he gets it once, not per pirate. But if you can, like, second turn some pirate, like Corsair, right, a 2/3 for 2. If it doesn't die, turn 3, Shady Dealer is a 5/4. Again, not super exciting, but that's pretty rough in terms of just, like, the power curve when you get it working. Poison Blade is weird. This is a 1/3 for 4. While this is out, using your hero power, instead of replacing it, it just gives this weapon +1 attack. Which is interesting, but it's only got 3 uses, and it only starts with 1 attack. It costs 4 mana, right? So it's not super cheap. Yes, you can use your hero power and keep augmenting this thing, but then you're holding off you're not using it, right? And it just, if it had one more use, or started with one more attack, I would say it was good, like really good. But I feel like it takes too much work powering this thing up. Powering up and not using it, then you're spending a lot of time not using your weapon, and that's not good. If you're powering it up and using it as you go, it's still like you're spending so much mana for not very much damage. Spend 4 mana, get a 1-attack weapon. Okay, don't attack with it right away. Wait till next turn you spend 2 mana, now it's a 2-attack weapon, 3 uses. Then you attack with it, so it's a 2-attack weapon with 2 uses. Next turn you gotta spend another 2 mana. You spent like 8 mana on this thing. Now it's gonna do 3 damage, and then 4 damage afterwards, but you spent like 10 mana to do 7 damage or something. Over 3 turns. I don't know. Does not seem that great to me. Rogues have good weapon, like, built in. They're better off just using all the guys like the Buccaneer and the Barber and stuff like that. Shadowpan Rider. He's a 3/7 for 5, which is very interesting stats, because 3/7, like, that's very survival. That's good arena stats, kind of. He costs 1 more than a turtle, but there's a big difference between 3 attack and 2. At 3 attack, he swings for okay damage, stuff like that. But the real key is, if you can combo him, then you get a 6/7 for 5 mana. Probably not on that turn, because you need that, like, because you had to play a spell. But if you start looking at, if you were getting coins from the cut purse, or if you just saved your coin, turn 4, you could play this guy as a 6/7, and then suddenly, that's some shadow badass, like, pandaness going on. Then we have Anubarak, who is my favorite from Heroes of the Storm. He's a very strange legend in this game. He is immortal, unless silenced or polymorphed, in which case he's screwed. You pay 9 mana, you get an 8/4, which is fragile, doesn't charge, doesn't do anything. So that late in the game, you're like, I don't know. Good in the arena, because his Death Rattle automatically returns to your hand. There's no condition or anything. If he wasn't silenced somehow, and he dies, he comes back to your hand, and, because you're going to have to spend the 9 mana to cast him again, he returns to your hand and drops a 4/4 in his place. So again, if he was killed on your opponent's turn, that 4/4 is going to be able to attack right away, and meanwhile you can recast him for 9 mana, which is a lot. It's so expensive, I don't think he works out to be awesome, but he's got immortality. I can appreciate that. We'll get to the Shaman, Warlock, Warrior, and all those neutral cards in Legends from the Grand Tournament expansion next time. If you found that useful or entertaining, or if you enjoy cookies, hit the like button. And don't forget to subscribe to Demonac Games for more Hearthstone Arena and other gaming videos.